After the Great Flood, the world fell into a strange stillness. The waters that had once swallowed every city and every civilization had receded, leaving behind an earth that was almost empty. Humanity at that time consisted of only one family, one bloodline, one shared memory of destruction, and one quiet fear that such a catastrophe could happen again at any moment. They spoke one language, thought in one way, and moved together like a vast people searching for a new beginning. They journeyed eastward and eventually settled in a wide, fertile land between the two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. That place was called Shinar. The plain was so flat that the horizon seemed to touch the sky. Fields of rich mud stretched endlessly beneath the sun. It was the perfect place to build a new civilization. But it was also there that an idea was born, an idea both magnificent and dangerous. As people began to settle, survival was no longer their only concern. They began to think about power, about fame, and about how to make sure they would never be erased again. Then, from the midst of the crowd, a declaration rose, like a spark thrown into a dry forest. Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered across the face of the whole earth. That was not a prayer. It was a decision, a declaration of mankind's right to determine its own destiny. For the first time after the Great Flood, humanity no longer wanted to live under fear of the heavens above. They wanted to create their own path. And so the greatest project in ancient human history began. Shinar was not a land of stone. There were no mountain ranges to provide building materials as in many other places, but that did not stop them. On the contrary, that very lack became the spark for human ingenuity. They found a way to create their own building material. They dug mud from the riverbanks, mixed it with water, shaped it into blocks, and dried it under the sun. But that still was not strong enough for a structure meant to reach the heavens. So they developed a new technique. Firing bricks in great furnaces. Massive kilns rose across the plain. Flames burned day and night, turning soft earthen bricks into hardened blocks as solid as stone. The ancient Babylonians called these baked bricks a guru, the material that would replace stone in their greatest works. But to bind millions of bricks together, they needed a special bonding agent. And Shinar had something many other lands did not: bitumen, natural asphalt seeping up from the earth. It was a thick, black, sticky substance, completely waterproof. When heated, it became a bonding material stronger than any ordinary mortar. People spread this black pitch between each brick, creating walls that were thick and nearly impenetrable. What is especially striking is that this same material had once been used to seal Noah's Ark before the Great Flood. But now, that very same substance was being used for an entirely different purpose, to build a structure that could challenge the heavens. Tens of thousands of workers labored without rest. Brick-moving lines operated constantly. Some mixed mud, some fired bricks, some carried materials, and some raised the walls. The sound of hammers, fire, and shouting echoed across the plains of Shinar day and night. It was like the first industrial city in human history. And from the center of that immense worksite, a structure began to rise from the earth. The tower they built was not a simple tower. It was designed in the form of a ziggurat, a stepped architectural structure typical of ancient Mesopotamia. Each level widened as it descended, forming a colossal stepped pyramid. The tower had 7 levels, and each one was painted a different color, symbolizing the 7 heavens in the ancient view of the universe. The lowest level was black, the color of earth, representing the material world. The higher levels shifted through red, white, and gold, until at last they reached the blue of the sky. At the very top stood a small temple adorned with lapis lazuli, a precious blue stone whose color matched the clear heavens above. The purpose of that temple was not simply worship. It was designed to blend into the sky, making the tower appear as though it touched the divine realm itself. The tower is said to have stood around 300 feet tall, an astonishing height for the ancient world, roughly equivalent to a modern 30-story building. Spiral ramps wound around its body, allowing people to walk from the ground all the way to the summit. From a distance, the structure looked like an artificial mountain rising from the plain. The Babylonians called it Bab-ilu, meaning Gate of God. In their minds, this was not merely a building. It was a bridge between earth and heaven, a place where humanity could ascend and step into the world of the divine by its own strength. It was a symbol of unity, ambition, and the belief that mankind could control its own destiny. But at the very moment humanity believed it had touched heaven, the story began to change. Scripture says that God looked down upon the earth and saw the tower mankind was building. He did not destroy it with thunder. There was no earthquake, no fire from heaven. Instead, he touched something far more fragile, yet far more essential to human society: language. In a moment no one could explain, the workers on the site suddenly could no longer understand one another. The foreman shouted an order, but the laborers heard only strange sounds. An engineer explained how the bricks should be set, but the workers stared back at him in confusion. Familiar words suddenly became meaningless noise. One person spoke, another could not understand. Two people argued because each thought the other had insulted him. In just a matter of hours, the worksite that had once operated like a massive machine became complete chaos. Arguments erupted. Groups began to separate because they could now understand only those who spoke as they did. The work stopped. No one could coordinate well enough to continue building. The tower still stood there, but the project itself fell silent. Humanity was forced to leave Shinar and scatter across the earth in groups divided by language. And that place was called Babel, meaning confusion. From that moment on, the Tower of Babel became a powerful symbol in human history. It was not merely an unfinished architectural project. It became a story about ambition, pride, and the limits of man. For thousands of years, civilizations continued to build new towers. The pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Babylon, the great cathedrals of medieval Europe, and today, the skyscrapers of steel and glass rising hundreds of feet above modern cities. Our technology today far surpasses that of the people of Shinar. We have the internet connecting billions of people, artificial intelligence, satellites orbiting the Earth, and even plans to reach other planets. But Babel's question still remains. When human beings come together, what exactly are we seeking? Cooperation to build a better world, or simply a race to make our own name great? Babel reminds us that human unity can create wonders. But if that unity is built only on ambition and ego, it can also collapse because of a single misunderstanding. Language is not merely speech. It is understanding, humility, and the ability to listen to one another. When those things disappear, even the strongest civilization can fall apart. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Babel leaves for every generation. Humanity may build towers as high as it wishes, but if their foundations are laid on pride, then sooner or later, they too will become silent ruins in the pages of history. Today, when we look up at cities glowing with thousands of screens, towering skyscrapers, and technological networks that connect the whole world, the story of Babel seems to echo once again. We speak a shared digital language, exchange information in an instant, and are building a world unlike anything that has ever existed before. Yet in the middle of all that connection, many people feel lonelier than ever. Perhaps that is because true unity is found not in technology or architecture, but in the human heart. Babel reminds us that mankind's greatest strength does not lie in massive structures, but in humility and in the ability to return to its true source. And the final question this story leaves with us still echoes today. What kind of tower is each of us building in our own life? A tower of fame and power, or a solid foundation built on faith, understanding, and humility? And